The floor, not the ceiling. One person's journey from $847 to $1.1 million. You track freight invoices on a cracked monitor in a windowless back office. Double shifts. The same desk. The same paycheck. Nothing moves. An envelope arrives on a Tuesday. You already know before you open it. Your mother's medical bill is over $11,000. The number has not changed. Your savings account holds $847. You have been staring at this number for 3 years. You do not sleep that night. Not from panic. Panic stopped motivating you a long time ago. But something clarifies in the dark. You have spent years routing money for other people, watching it flow through accounts you will never touch, watching the system work for everyone except you, and then a thought arrives that does not leave. Money is not a destination, it is a system, and systems can be entered from any door. The first door, $200. You opened a brokerage account with $200. It feels absurd. The amount is almost laughable against the size of the debt hanging over you. You'd do it anyway. You'd buy fractional shares of a broad market index fund. Not because you have a sophisticated theory, because time in the market is the only variable within your control right now. You automate the investment before you can spend it. You are building a floor, not a ceiling. You pick up a second job. Weekend bookkeeping for a small construction company. $400 a month. Cash. The owner is a direct man who runs his business on instinct and handshakes. Within one weekend of looking at his books, you'll find the problem. He is losing 11% on 2 of his 5 contracts. Misclassified material costs. Nobody told him because nobody was looking. You tell him directly. He stares at you for a long moment, as though you have accused him of something. Then he writes you a bonus check. That is how the first door opens. Competence without ego at the entry level opens doors people never expect. The system compounds. The construction company owner introduces you to his accountant. The accountant refers you to a property developer with 3 years of disorganized tax filings. You fix them. Each connection leads to the next. You do not plan the path, you do the work, and the path appears. Every month you track the medical debt balance. You watch the number fall, slowly at first, then faster. 14 months later, the debt is gone. You do not celebrate. You redirect every single dollar that was going to debt directly into your investment accounts. The same $600 a month that went to debt now flows into the market. You live on what remains. It is almost not enough. Some months, it is exactly not enough. At 29, you have $18,000 invested. A number that once felt impossible now feels too small. Both things are true at the same time. The license nobody knows about. You study for your real estate license on lunch breaks. You do not tell anyone. There is nothing to tell yet. It is just preparation, and preparation does not require an audience. You sit the exam on a Saturday morning. You pass. You return to the logistics office on Monday. The license exists now. It is not a plan. It is a tool, sitting in a drawer, waiting for the right problem. The right problem arrives through your property developer client. He wants to offload a distressed duplex that no other agent will consider. Asking price, $74,000. The neighborhood is in transition. Conventional agents will not touch it. You'd walk the property yourself with a contractor. You'd go room by room. The structural issues are cosmetic. Repair estimate, $9,000. You negotiate the price to $61,000. You need $61,000 you do not have. The no that does not stop you. The first lender says no. The neighborhood triggers their risk model. The second lender says no. The property type hits a policy exclusion. 3 lenders say no. You stand, nod, and walk out each time. You find a community credit union. You bring 2 years of clean financial history. Income documented, no gaps, nothing to hide. You hold your breath and wait. Approved. The mortgage is $440 a month. You charge $650 per unit. After insurance and maintenance reserves, you net $580 per month. This is not passive income, not yet, but it is real. Month 7, a tenant stops paying. You send the notice. No emotion, just process. You handle the eviction filing yourself, without resentment, without drama. You are the property manager, the lease drafter, the repair coordinator, and the collections process all in one. This is what ownership looks like before it looks like anything else. The portfolio that builds quietly at 31, you own 3 rental units. None of them are impressive. All of them produce cash flow. You have $41,000 in index funds. The compounding you started with $200 has been working quietly for 4 years. You keep $12,000 in a high-yield savings account as an emergency buffer. You never touch it. A colleague from the logistics firm asks how you built what you have. You tell him exactly. Lower expenses, automate investments, acquire assets that produce cash. Never confuse being busy with making progress. He nods as though you have given him a riddle. Most people respond this way. You stopped being surprised long ago. The eye for value. At 34, a small private equity group contacts you. 4 people, focused on distressed commercial assets in secondary markets. They do not want your money. They have seen your rental portfolio. They want your judgment specifically, your ability to identify value where others see only risk. They offer 10% carry on every deal you source. Carry is not salary. Carry is a share of the upside when a deal performs. You spend weekends researching secondary markets, vacancy rates, anchor tenant losses, owner carrying costs. The data is public. Most people do not read it carefully enough to find what you find. You'll find a vacant strip mall. The anchor tenant departed 18 months ago. The owner is hemorrhaging $14,000 per month in carrying costs on a property assessed at $1.2 million. He needs to exit. You modeled the repositioning to medical clinics, a pharmacy, and a regional grocery. You work through every scenario. Post-stabilization, net operating income, $180,000 per year. The numbers hold under every stress test you run. You present to the group. They listen without interrupting. One question. Acquisition cost. The property is acquired for $890,000. Your name is not on the deed, but this is your deal. 2 years of repositioning. New tenants move in. The clinic opens. The pharmacy signs. The grocery anchors. The east wing. The model lands exactly where you said it would. The firm exits at $2.1 million. Your carry, $121,000. You have never seen a number this large with your name attached to it. What you do with $121,000, you do not buy a car. You do not tell anyone. You sit with the number for exactly 1 hour. $80,000 goes into a self-directed retirement account and immediately into a private bridge lending position, 10% annualized, short-term, secured against a residential development. The capital works while you sleep. $41,000 stays in reserve. Markets will move against you eventually. They always do. Reserves are not idle capital. They are leverage in waiting. The structure becomes real. By 37, you are no longer an employee. You have an LLC, 2 active deal relationships, and 7 rental units across 2 states. The portfolio produces cash flow every month without your direct labor. Your brokerage account crosses $200,000. The compounding that began with $200 is now visible. You are not afraid of failure at this stage. You are afraid of complacency. You have watched people reach a number and stop as though wealth were a destination with a door that closes behind you. It is not. It is a moving object that requires constant navigation. You hire a fee-only financial planner, not because you lack understanding. You understand very well. Wisdom at this stage means knowing the difference between knowing and still having blind spots. Depreciation alone reduces your taxable income by $38,000 a year. The structure does that work for you. He identifies a trust vehicle you had not modeled. You implement it. Net worth, $1.1 million at 40. Your net worth crosses $1.1 million. You check the number on a Tuesday morning. You have not told a single person, not family, not friends. The number is real, but it is not the point. The point was always elsewhere. Your mother's care is covered. That was the reason you started. You do not let yourself forget it. Your rental units sit inside an LLC, inside a holding company. Investment accounts are separated by tax structure, taxable, tax-deferred, tax-free, each serving a different time horizon. You are modeling a family trust, not because you have heirs yet, but because structure must come before it is obvious. Generational wealth is not an inheritance strategy. It is architectural. You build it before it is necessary. The principle: your private equity relationships have matured. You are now co-sponsoring deals alongside institutional capital. Your capital is on the table. Your name is in the operating agreement. You are a principal. A 40% correction in commercial real estate would stress your portfolio significantly. You model this quarterly. A regulatory shift in depreciation rules would compress your tax efficiency. You track all relevant legislation. You maintain reserves that most people at your net worth level would have deployed already. At 43, You are in a room with 4 other principals. The deal size is $18 million. Your co-investment is $400,000, 22% of your liquid capital. At the edge of your self-imposed ceiling, you'll run the downside scenario twice. It is survivable. That is the only question that ever matters. You'll sign, not with confidence, with clarity. Confidence can be misplaced. Clarity cannot. The machine continues without you. If something happened to you tomorrow, the cash flow would continue, the structure would hold, the accounts would remain separated and functional, the trust provisions would activate. That is what generational means, not the accumulation, but the architecture that outlasts the accumulator. Then a credit event triggers overnight in a European banking corridor. Commercial lending begins tightening fast. 2 of your tenants are subsidiaries of a mid-sized retailer that just filed for Chapter 11. The refinancing window you planned for next quarter may close before you can reach it. You are on a call with your lender at 6:47 in the morning. You are already modeling 3 alternative scenarios before the call ends. The market will open again tomorrow, indifferent to everything you have built. It will ask only one question. What do you do next? The framework underneath the story. The story above is not about luck, timing, or access to capital that most people do not have. It began with $200 in a cliff-eyed decision to enter the system from the only door that was open. Every element that followed was a direct consequence of that first decision and the discipline applied to each door that opened after it. The framework that runs underneath it is worth naming clearly, because most financial content either presents the principles without the narrative, or the narrative without the principles. Neither is as useful as both together. Every dollar saved before lifestyle inflates is permanent compounding capital. The early dollars, the ones saved on $847 in a savings account while carrying more than $11,000 in debt, are the most powerful dollars in the entire story. Not because the amounts are large, because they have the most time. A dollar invested at 26 in a broad market index fund is a different financial instrument than a dollar invested at 46, even if the nominal value is identical. The time differential is the actual asset. Most people understand this abstractly. Almost nobody internalizes it early enough to act on it. Competence that solves someone else's real problem creates economic relationships that money cannot buy directly. Every meaningful opportunity in the story above the construction company, the accountant referral, the property developer, the private equity carry arrived through demonstrated value, not networking in the conventional sense. What produced everything was finding a problem that someone with resources needed solved, and solving it without being asked, and without overstating what the solution was worth. That approach scales across income levels and industries in ways that almost no other strategy does. Debt that produces no economic return is the direct enemy of wealth accumulation. Not because debt is inherently wrong. Debt used to acquire the duplex produced cash flow that exceeded its cost. But because consumer debt and medical debt consume the margin that compounding requires to work. The 14 months spent eliminating the medical debt before aggressively investing was not a delay, it was the correct sequencing. The sequence matters. Eliminate the bleeding first, then build. Cash flowing assets changed the structural nature of income over time. The first rental unit produced $580 per month after expenses, not enough to live on, but real and recurring, regardless of whether active labor was exchanged for it. The second and third units added to that stream. This transition from all income, tied to direct labor, to a growing portion, arriving independent of labor, is the actual definition of financial progress. It does not happen quickly. It happens the way the debt disappeared, slowly, then faster. Reserves are not idle capital. They are the mechanism that allows you to survive the moments when multiple things go wrong simultaneously. A tenant files Chapter 11. A refinancing window closes unexpectedly. A credit event tightens lending conditions across the market overnight. The people who deploy every available dollar in pursuit of maximum return eliminate the margin that makes them survivable in adverse conditions. Reserves convert a bad year from an existential threat into a problem to be modeled and solved. Structure matters more than strategy at scale. Tax architecture, legal entity structure, accounts separation by time horizon, and tax treatment. These are not afterthoughts. They are the difference between wealth that compounds efficiently and wealth that leaks at every point of contact with the tax code and the transfer process. The depreciation deduction that reduced taxable income by $38,000 per year was the predictable outcome of implementing the correct structure early enough that it had time to work. The door you can open today is rarely the door that matters most. The $200 brokerage account mattered mostly because opening it created the behavioral infrastructure for everything that followed. The weekend bookkeeping engagement mattered mostly because it created the accountant relationship. The real estate license mattered mostly because it made the duplex possible, which created the credibility that preceded the private equity relationship, which produced the carry that funded the bridge lending position. None of those doors looked significant at the moment of opening. All of them led somewhere. What actually changes the number crossed 1.1 million on a Tuesday morning. Nothing felt different in the way people expect wealth to feel different. The desk was still a desk. The phone still rang with problems. The problems were larger in dollar terms and required more sophisticated responses, but they were structurally identical to every previous problem. Identify what is actually happening, model the scenarios, determine what is survivable, decide and act. The only thing that actually changed, the thing that changed everything, was the question the market asks every morning. Not whether you can survive it, whether you already know what you will do next. That preparation, that clarity in advance of the crisis, is not a product of wealth. It is the product of having run the same analytical process on every problem, from the first eviction notice to the $18 million co-investment. The process does not change. The stakes change. The process remains the same. Most people wait for the moment when they will feel ready, when the account balance will feel like enough to justify the next decision, when the circumstances will be favorable enough to start. The account that crossed $1.1 million started with $847 and an $11,000 debt and a Tuesday night without sleep. The floor you are building does not require different circumstances. It requires the next decision. It is the only door in front of you right now. It is always the only one that matters.